The Great Struggle of Prince Mahajanaka. In the ancient times of India, there was a magnificent city called Mithila, the capital of the Videha kingdom. It was a place of golden spires, vast libraries, and people who lived in harmony. The kingdom was ruled by King Mahajanaka the Elder, who had two sons, Janaka and Janaka. After the king passed away, Janaka took the throne, while Janaka became the commander-in-chief. However, as often happens in the corridors of power, whispers of betrayal began to circulate. Misunderstandings, fueled by greedy courtiers, led to a tragic war between the two brothers. In the heat of battle, King Janaka was killed. His queen, who was pregnant at the time, knew that her unborn child's life was in grave danger. Disguising herself as a common traveler and hiding her royal jewels in a basket of rice, she fled the city under the cover of darkness. Guided by a strange sense of destiny, she traveled far until she reached the city of Kalachampa. There, a kind and learned Brahmin spotted her. Sensing her noble grace despite her ragged clothes, he adopted her as his sister. Soon after, she gave birth to a son, whom she named Mahajanaka, after his grandfather. The boy grew up in the Brahmin's house, surrounded by scholars and commoners alike. He was a child of extraordinary strength and piercing intelligence. However, the other children, sensing something different about him, would often bully him, calling him a widow's son or a man of no lineage. One day, unable to bear the insults any longer, the young Mahajanaka went to his mother and demanded the truth. When he learned that he was the rightful heir to the throne of Mithila, he did not cry or seek revenge. Instead, he looked at his mother and said that he would not live a life of hiding. He vowed to regain his kingdom, not through a handout, but through his own merit and labor. By the time he turned 16, Mahajanaka had become a young man of imposing stature and wisdom beyond his years. He told his mother that he intended to travel to the distant land of Suvarnabhumi, the land of gold. He planned to trade goods, amass a fortune, and then return to Mithila to raise an army and reclaim his father's throne. His mother, terrified of the dangers of the deep sea, begged him not to go. She offered her her remaining jewels, saying they were enough to live comfortably. But Mahajanaka shook his head. He believed that a man's worth is defined by his effort, not by his inheritance. Taking half of his mother's wealth, he bought a cargo of fine goods and joined a crew of 700 merchants on a massive ship. The voyage began with clear skies and favorable winds. The merchants laughed and dreamed of the riches they would find. But on the seventh day, the ocean showed its true, terrifying face. A storm of unprecedented fury struck the vessel. The sky turned into a shroud of ink, and the wind howled like 1,000 demons. Massive waves, as tall as the palace walls of Mithila, crashed against the wooden ship. The hull groaned and began to crack. Water poured in from every side. The sailors and merchants, overcome by terror, began to wail and pray to their gods for mercy. They threw their goods overboard, but it was too late. The ship was sinking into the dark abyss. While everyone else was paralyzed by fear, Mahajanaka remained calm. He observed the direction of the wind and calculated the distance to the nearest shore. Knowing he would need every ounce of strength, he did something extraordinary. He sat down and ate a full meal of concentrated sugar and ghee, providing his body with lasting energy. Then he took his thickest robes, soaked them in oil to make them waterproof and buoyant, and wrapped them tightly around himself. As the ship
began to vanish beneath the waves, Mahajanaka did not wait to be sucked down by the whirlpool. He climbed to the very top of the mast and, with a powerful leap, launched himself far into the ocean, away from the sinking wreckage and the sharks that were already gathering around the screaming men. For 7 long days and 7 long nights, Prince Mahajanaka swam alone in the infinite expanse of the saltwater desert. He had no compass but the stars, no food but his own resolve, and no companion but the crashing waves. His limbs grew heavy as lead, his skin was blistered by the relentless sun, and his throat was parched from the salt air. Many times the exhaustion became so great that his eyes began to close, but he would shake himself awake. He swam with a steady, rhythmic stroke, never allowing despair to enter his heart. He did not know if he would ever see land again, but he knew that as long as he had the power to move his arms, he had the duty to keep swimming. In the celestial realms, the goddess Mani Mekala, the guardian of the seas, had been negligent in her duties. When she finally looked down at the ocean, she was shocked to see a lone man battling the waves. She had seen thousands of shipwrecks, and usually the survivors gave up after a few hours. But this man had been swimming for 7 days without pausing. Intrigued, she descended from the clouds and hovered just above the waves, hidden from his sight. She decided to test his spirit. Who is this mortal who continues to struggle in this vast ocean where no shore is visible? Can you not see that your effort is futile? You are like a man trying to empty the sea with a small cup. Why do you not simply let go and find peace in death? Mahajanaka, though his lungs were burning, looked up and replied with a voice that was firm and full of dignity. O goddess, a man who knows the way of the world must always strive as long as he lives. To give up is to admit defeat before the battle is over. If I perish while striving, I die with honor, knowing I did everything in my power. But if I give up, I die a coward, blamed by my own conscience and the world. Effort is my duty. The results are in the hands of fate. I swim because a person must never lose hope while there is still breath in their body. Mani Mekala was moved to tears by his words. She realized she was looking at a great being, a bodhisattva. Truly, you are a man of supreme courage. Because you did not lose heart when all seemed lost, you have earned the right to live. She reached down, scooped him up in her arms as if he were a small child, and flew across the ocean. Mahajanaka, finally allowing himself to rest, fell into a deep, peaceful sleep. The goddess carried him all the way to his ancestral home, Mithila, and laid him on a sacred stone slab in the royal park, under the shade of a flowering mango tree. As fate would have it, the king of Mithila, Mahajanaka's uncle, had died that very week without leaving a son. Before his death, he had set a series of complex riddles and tasks to find a worthy successor. The royal chariot, led by 4 white horses, was sent out to find the next king. The horses, guided by a divine power, ran straight to the royal park and stopped before the sleeping Mahajanaka. When the ministers saw the marks of greatness on his feet and the radiance of his face, they knew they had found their king. Mahajanaka was crowned in a ceremony of great splendor. He married the beautiful and wise Princess Sivali, and together they ruled Mithila for many years. Under his reign, the kingdom reached a level of prosperity never seen before. He built great reservoirs for the farmers, schools for the children, and massive halls where the poor could find food and shelter. He was a king who led by example, showing his people that success is the fruit of tireless perseverance. One day, while walking through his gardens, the king noticed 2 mango trees. One was laden with sweet, ripe fruit, but its branches were broken and its leaves torn because people had thrown stones to get the fruit. The other tree was barren and had no fruit, but it stood tall, green and peaceful. At that moment, a profound realization struck Mahajanaka. He saw that his kingdom and his wealth were like the fruitful tree. They brought burden, conflict, and constant worry. He longed for the peace of the barren tree. Despite the tears of Queen Sivali and the pleas of his subjects, King Mahajanaka decided to renounce his throne. He realized that just as he had crossed the physical ocean through effort, he must now cross the ocean of worldly suffering through spiritual practice. He handed the kingdom to his son, donned the simple saffron robes of a monk, and walked out of the palace gates with nothing but a bowl. He spent the rest of his days in the quiet solitude of the Himalayas, eventually achieving a state of perfect peace and enlightenment. The story of Mahajanaka remains a beacon of hope for all. It teaches us